Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for the pitch on the podcast. I've had a lot of fun with it. And on it, you will find out that not only do I have a face made for radio, but I have a voice made for print journalism. And I write like I'm a TV guy, so it kind of comes full circle. It's great to be here. Thank you very much for Mark and Joe and Mats and the entire team for inviting me. We're in my backyard. I was in San Diego on Monday and Tuesday at a conference, and then Wichita on Wednesday. It's really cool to just kind of like roll out of bed and just come right to a conference. So that's particularly rewarding for me. I also get a sense that I'm preaching to the choir a lot here. In a lot of the other conferences I've spoken at, I was in Dallas last week, it's people that don't yet get it, okay? Don't yet understand that transformation happens in the marketplace, and who don't yet understand that capital has influence. Capital equals influence in many cases. You guys get it. My hope is not necessarily to win you over to a new way of thinking, which is part of my hope with some of those other audiences, but maybe through our story to be able to give you a language with which to share with your communities when you get back. I love what Andrew just talked about in terms of being in local community and fellowship together. Super important. The other thing I want to mention is that I've been really richly rewarded today as I've spoken with many of you. You know, we're all God's image bearers. And as such, when we can interact with each other, we come to understand our Heavenly Father better. And because of my interactions with so many of you today, I know God better. And I know how He is at work in the marketplace. I'm an investor. I actually got started at the very beginning of my career in the early 90s on Wall Street, and there's a concept there called the trend is your friend. And I think that's really apropos for what's going on here, and that Aslan is on the move. He's working through all of us together. And it's incredibly encouraging just to get a sense of that I'm not alone, that you're not alone. That's why we're all here. So with this, I want to go ahead. Is there a clicker? What I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a quick backdrop. Sorry? The clicker's on my clicker. You're the clicker. Oh my goodness, you and I are going to become great friends over the next 15 minutes. Okay, so click, please. Okay, all right, great. All right, so faith, I can do this. Faith-driven investing. So what's this all about? I want to talk to you a little bit about a movement that is afoot, that you're all part of. Again, much of this is preaching to the choir, but this is the language we're starting to use as through the Faith-Driven Investor podcast and faithdriveninvestor.org, we're trying to catalyze more of a movement for people to go ahead and allocate their financial resources to something that really matters. So we all know that the most important question we'll ever ask is why. So why are we doing this? Why? We are stewarding His resources. Most important thing is this concept of ownership versus stewardship. You get it, right? We're stewarding His resources while participating in the restoration and renewal of all things out of gratitude and obedience. We've been given this incredible gift of life, now and eternal. What do we do in response to it? Well, we respond in gratitude, wanting to participate in the work that He is doing, and out of a sense of obedience, that there are many things that we've been entrusted with. We all know the parable of the talents. So out of gratitude and obedience, most important thing about this movement is heart posture. Okay, we're going to talk a little bit about some of the supply side, some of the demand side, some of the things. But let me never have this be about this fund or that asset class. The most important thing that we as Christ followers will do, the most important thing you'll take back to your local community about this movement is heart posture. If every Christ follower in the world, by the way, there's $350 trillion of investable assets. It is assumed, is thought that Christ followers stored about a third of that. So think of more than $100 trillion. If every Christ follower would get down on their knees and just ask God what they might do with the assets that He's entrusted to them for His glory, the world would completely change as we know it, right? It doesn't matter whether you invest in this fund or that stock or that real estate community. The most important thing is the heart posture, which means if somebody goes through that process and comes away and feels that God has told them to invest in solar farms in the Nevada desert, that is equally valid as somebody comes away from that and says, I need to invest in businesses, missions companies in India. It is the process of communing with the living God to understand how he might have them allocate his resources. Now, as it turns out, I resonate more with the latter. You probably do too. But we should never be prescriptive or prejudicial about how a Christ follower feels that they are hearing from God. The key win here in this movement is that they're doing that. They're endeavoring to hear from God. They're praying about their investment decisions. They're fasting about it. They're seeking godly counsel. That, by and large, doesn't happen 99.99% of the time, even among serious Christ followers. Think about your investment portfolios right now. How many of us have index funds? Do we know what's in those index funds? Do we know if any of the stocks contain things about gambling or pornography or any one of a number of bad things? Or are we intentional about investing our retirement assets for something that's more about human flourishing, even if it isn't overtly about God's kingdom? We'll talk about all that, but let us not lose about the concept of heart posture. Click, please. Okay, some background. Click. Okay, this is David and I. This is me about 20 years ago. David also about 20 years ago. As we started this company called Bandwidth with foundational values of faith first, then family, then work, and then fitness. We believed early on that transformation happens in the marketplace, and as we bore witness to our faith with partners and vendors and customers and employees in a way that hopefully was winsome and with gentleness and respect, we might bring God glory. That was important to us. Next click. Okay, this is how long ago it was. Apparently Hall & Oates was still popular when we got started. And over time, I will actually leave it here for a little while. I'll give you a break. We spent the first 3 years spending through the money we had from prior exits. We then came out here to Sand Hill Road, which is known as the investing capital of the world for venture capital. We went up and down it. We didn't have fish on our business cards. We wouldn't talk about our faith on the first visit. But when it came around to a second or third visit, or a site visit, they come out to North Carolina, we'd say, listen, we're going to hire the best person for the job. We're not going to be a holy huddle, but we're about faith and bringing God glory, and we're going to do things like pray before board meetings. And as we talked about that, we got a lot of blank stares. I think that really in a best-case scenario, we were misunderstood. In a worst-case scenario, I think we were prejudiced against, and we went 0 for 40 in venture raises. Amazing. There's a lot more to that. There's also a time where we're probably being more willful about raising money rather than being faithful. We'd pray before we walked into that meeting that we'd walk out with a $20 million term sheet. We really never were praying about whether we should be raising money or not. But we went through a very difficult time. Through the grace of God, we didn't raise money, which meant that as we continued to grow the company to where it is now, Bandwidth and Republic Wireless, we continue to control it. So click. So even though we're now a public company, this is David giving God the glory at the NASDAQ as Bandwidth, ticker symbol BAND, went public. We are a publicly traded control company, so we continue to control the company, and we get to control the culture. We get to control the board, and there are things that are really key to the way that we're able to do that. But you know what? There's some great publicly traded CEOs that don't have control companies that also do an incredible job of bringing God glory in the marketplace. One right up the road is Pat Gelsinger at VMware, $85 billion market cap. And he does a great job about talking about why he does what he does. And there are a whole host of them. If you're going to have a basket of stocks, by the way, of 20 stocks, how about some Coca-Cola bottling or some VMware or some Liquidia or some Verisk or SailPoint? A lot of really great publicly traded companies out there that bring God the glory when they're asked about why they succeed. Okay, next slide, please. So understanding that, of course, Christian-led businesses can compete. When we started a fund to invest in faith-driven entrepreneurs in Southeast Asia, this is our Southeast Asia team, and then also the United States. We have just shy of $100 million under management now. We've made some investments in some really cool companies. Click, please. And some of them are up here. They include Cloud Factory, which many of you know in the upper right-hand corner, which has absolutely crushed it. An amazing company. Grab, second line right down here. Anthony Tan comes out of Harvard Business School, has an incredible Christian faith and testimony. They bought Uber in Asia. He has something like 3.5 million drivers now. And he is always looking to bear witness for the reason, for the hope he has. Just lots of really great stories. Next, click, please. Here's some of the team from Cloud Factory. They have now more than 5,000 cloud workers in Nepal and Kenya. And they have now, I think they're at quarter number 24 of record revenue growth. And it's just an amazing story. Click. This is Sam Roush and his sisters Molly and Annie. Sam is really a very large shot. He's 6'4", 240 as a high school sophomore. His sister, it looks like his daughter. His little sister is Annie. Okay, this is the family of my partner, Luke Roush, who is around. Many of you know him. Luke and his wife, Brooke, love taking family visits to sushi for family dinner. Click. But if the first time you took Annie, that little cute blonde that you just saw, and you put her in front of a plate of sea urchin nigiri, it'll be the last time they go to family dinner at a sushi restaurant. Okay? So what did they need? What did the Roush family need? Click. They needed the California roll. Luke and I came to figure out that Sovereign's Capital were a fund with a very high minimum investment. We're a 12-year fund, crazy illiquid. By the very nature of what we do, it's very risky. We came to understand that to a lot of Christ followers out there, we look a lot like sea urchin nigiri, when the movement really needs some California rolls. And now, to be clear, lots of us in this room look like sea urchin nigiri. We're talking about IT companies in North India. But we also know that we're intentional about being in different communities where there's some very real estate investing going on. There's some publicly traded companies that are doing incredible work where you can buy just a single share and have, liquidity in 3 days. So we said, what does it look like to be a participant in trying to catalyze a movement, focus on faith-driven investing that will involve and include and invite all Christ followers? It's got to be more than just our funds. We are all collectively kind of mavericks. We're pioneers. We're kind of on the bleeding edge. But we need to understand that we need to bring people along to be able to encourage them to think about being intentional about their faith. And the first time they think about doing that, maybe having them invest in probably not the best investment first. With time, yes. But what do the California rolls look like? So we're endeavoring to understand how that looks like so that people get involved and then do get really excited about the other aspects of the industry. Next slide, please. Okay. We envision a time, you can read this, 10 years from now when every faith-driven investor, every person motivated by their Christian faith has real opportunity to participate in the work that God is doing in the world with 100% of their investment portfolio, with their 401ks, with the money that they had set aside for college, for retirement, for a rainy day. I think that there can be underlying gospel integration into everything we invest in. And I don't think we're very far away from it. Next slide, please. This summer, we got some people together across real estate and public equities. We had Bob Dahl, the CIO of Nuveen, talking about a new fund that he's going to be rolling out. We had a panel of people in private equity. Guys like Talenton, David Sims is here, were there. We had people... we had a whole bunch of folks talking about all different aspects of real estate, all getting together, talking about this. Next, please. Here are some of the logos represented. You're never going to be able to read through them all, so we'll hit next. We came together and we did table group discussions about what are the unifying principles we can all agree to. Okay? We don't have to say you need to invest in this or that, but what are the ways that we can think about it that are common approaches? I hope that you get a chance to go to faithdriveninvestor.org, it's a website, to interact with us. This is a straw man. This is early days. There's no full-time employee here. It's a collection. It's a work of volunteers, all getting together as a movement, trying to understand what is it we stand for. Here are the things that we kind of came up in our table groups that are the straw man. And you see some things like heart posture. You see things like collaboration that are really important. One of the things also, as I'm on the right-hand side here, is excellence matters. Ours is a movement that has to be characterized by excellence. There are two big parties that are looking at us right now that are presuming that we're doing this poorly. The first one is the rest of the secular world that doesn't listen to K-Love because they think that Christian music isn't as good. Okay? Sometimes I don't think K-Love is as good as some of the music I like, right? But the secular world presumes that the Christian version of something is not going to be very good. We have a great opportunity to be an excellent witness and testimony to the rest of the world as we deliver great investment returns or incredible social impact or, yes, great gospel impact as well. And that is the bridge over to the second group that presumes this is going to be poorly done. And those are the Christ followers that we go to church with. Because you see, the world is littered with the dead bodies of people who have lost money with people they've invested in the church parking lot. Those are the headwinds we face. We need to combat that with excellence. What does excellence mean? Yes, excellence can mean great financial return, but it doesn't have to mean that. We all know that there are incredible patient and concessionary capital opportunities. But when we do that, we need to endeavor to understand our outcomes. We need to be able to have great audits. We need to have great financial controls. We need to understand cash flow. We need to surround ourselves with great advisors. We can't just play on the fact that we're doing great work and play the kingdom card all the time as our first, second, and third approaches. We have to have great rigor with what we do. When people see us overseas, they have to admire our work because we are a testimony and a witness to our faith and how we do business. Super important. Okay, next slide, please. Next, we're going to go through these pretty quickly. Okay, some different asset classes coming out of this time this summer. A bunch of working groups formed. One is public equities. Imagine a world in which we invested in companies that are run by Christian CEOs. That'd be interesting. I know of at least 25 of them. If you think that's too small of a circle, you can go a little bit bigger. How about those that employ corporate chaplains so that their employees might come to know the Lord? That's a little bit of a bigger circle. An even bigger circle, faith-driven employee resource groups. I go around the country and I talk about faith and work. And I say, where do you think the center for innovation is in the faith and work movement? And a lot of people say, well, Atlanta or Dallas or Indianapolis. I would submit to you that it's right here where they're incredibly active, new or resurgent faith-driven employee resource groups at Apple, at Google, at Facebook. They're doing prayer walks at Facebook. They're doing praise and worship music in the lunchroom at Dropbox. Okay? So for those of you who have a company in the States or elsewhere and feel that we really can't, we just got to be careful about how we really implement this, there's incredible air cover. There's a great Christian working group at Google. Now, yes, there's a Buddhist one and a Muslim one, but we should celebrate this because truth stands out in the marketplace of ideas. What does it look like as we as an investor call up some of these companies that we're investing in and say, listen, do you have a faith-driven employee resource group? Is that part of what you do as you love on your employees? I, as an investor, want to invest in a company that invests in their employees. Employee retention is one of the key employee statistics. This is a great way to do it. And if that guy says, gosh, where are you coming from? You can say, well, everybody does. Apple's got one, Google, et cetera. We need, as a body, to be intentional about understanding that capital equals influence and that every dollar we invest amounts to a vote. What are we voting for? Okay, next, please. This is a great article from the New York Times talking about Robert Netzley and how he's come up with investment products that do some of the negative screening, but and take out some of the pornography and the gambling and things like that. But I look forward to a time where we can create investment vehicles about what Christ followers are for. Too oftentimes we're known for what we're against. So there's some work being done on that. You can follow on the site. Next, please. Private equity, a whole bunch of stuff going on here. Next, please. You'll see some of the names here. You see Talenton and a bunch of other folks that are really making an impact. I've left some people out. Let me know some of those, please. Next, please. Real estate, this is huge. So much money invested in real estate. So much money in multifamily real estate, where you take one of the units, you put a resident chaplain in there, they run an alpha course. It increases the resident retention, increases the online reputation. Apartment Life, which is a great apartment chaplains model, half of their consumers, half of their customers aren't believers. They hire Apartment Life because it's just good for business. and it spreads the gospel. Why are not all of our real estate dollars invested like that? Okay, real estate next, please. Next. And, then there's shopping center real estate investment trusts. It's where the butcher, the baker, and the candlestick maker are. It's where you can do corporate chaplaincy. Amazing opportunity there. Next. Okay, so this is where I'm going to leave you all because I'm out of time. This, again, is the beginning stages of a volunteer-led movement. There is a website where a number of us have congregated, and you need to be at the BAM website. You need to be at a bunch of different websites to build community. We do have these really cool podcasts I think are really cool, but you'll find people like Trey Stevens of Founders Fund, which invested in Amazon and Palantir, Peter Thiel's money, 0 to 1, really, really incredible investors. He talks about how his Christian faith informs his life as a contrarian investor. Frank Chen from Andreessen Horowitz talks about his Christian faith and how it informs his ability to be an investor in artificial intelligence and how he thinks about loving on his portfolio in a way that points to Jesus. There is a movement afoot. Aslan is on the move. We're all part of it. And it's great being with you all here. Thank you for having me.